morning, Senna, and good morning to your studio guests.
I'm wondering if you've seen this particular video and what your thoughts are on it.
Well, I saw the video, and I was in the company of a friend. Whilst I was watching, I was, smiling and shaking my head. And he was like, Adib, you should be sad about this video. Why are you smiling? Then I told him, it's not surprising. I mean, this is what a lot of inhabitants of inner cities have had to contend with over a long period of time. Just that as analysts, we are very circumspect in the way we talk about these issues because it is a very sensitive matter. Anything that hinges on ethnicity and religion is very volatile. So when you talk about it, you have to be careful. It is common practice. It is no secret that a lot of officers have a certain, in fact, a good part of the population, not just, security agents, have certain perceptions about Zongos and, Muslims and across the cities of. I worked with a lady for a number of years. Then one day she was very candid with me. She told me that, hey, she had some perceptions about Muslims, and after working with me, she realized she was ignorant. I was like, why? I don't know. She thought Muslims were dirty. She thought they did, they like to fight. Because in the office, anytime there is confusion, I take all, nonsense nobody takes in the office. And she was surprised. So you'd realize that a lot of these perceptions, okay, and what we call it, prejudice is driven by ignorance, okay? You ask people their perceptions about Zongos and they say really despicable things, but you ask them, have you lived in a Zongo before? Then they say no. Do you have a Zongo friend? Then they say no. So how did you get those perceptions? Because of what mommy and daddy told me. Or because of what I see on TV. Forgetting that, look, Zongos are not only inhabited by Muslims or Northerners. There are a lot of sadness and, Christians living in the Zongos. My office is in the Zongo. To my left are Evers, to my right are Ashantis, to my back are Evers. In fact, when you go to Zongos such as Ashama, there's a considerable Ever community there. I have a lot of Ashanti friends who speak fluent Hausa. I ask them how. They tell me they grew up in the Zongo. So I think this is a perception we need to correct. Not all inhabitants of Zongo, not all Hausa speakers are Muslims. Just as many Ghanaians think Northerner, when you say Northerner, is a tribe. There are many tribes in the northern part of the country, and not all Northerners are Muslims. You get me? So I think that if we are able to educate, we should be able to get a lot more Ghanaians to understanding the nuances and not be driven by ignorance. On the other hand, I feel as security officers, they should know better. Okay? I remember after George Floyd was killed in the U.S., there was talk about racial profiling and the fact that the various police departments from LAPD to NIPD and the rest, officers were accused of biases, there are videos of white suspects holding guns, and the officers are able to exercise maximum restraint, and in the end, they save the day. And there are similar videos of black suspects holding knives, not guns, but are shot, okay? So there was a research into biases, and they realized that some officers are biased without knowing they are biased, and that is what we call implicit bias, okay? So because of the socialization process, because of what they see on TV and hear on radio, some officers implicitly become biased, even though as much as they can, they try to be neutral, but they are biased. Okay, and some are overtly, like openly biased, like the video we saw in the comments they were passing. So to me, I mean, I'm not surprised whatsoever. This has existed for some time. So I think that this is an opportunity for the IGP to look closely into this matter of biases and see how we can, rectify it. If not, you actually widen the gap between the security agents on one hand and the citizens on the other hand. When there was confusion at Nima, I was there, and I realized that the inhabitants of the area felt safer under the umbrella of the gangs than the police. And nobody was even willing to give information to the police because they didn't want to compromise their security. So that shows you how deteriorated trust levels are between the people and the police. So actions like this further isolate the police, and nobody would be willing to cooperate. The police would be rejected and would be seen as being biased. And sadly, anytime there's a protest and they get to know that it is stemming from a Zongo community, they go there with a Terminator mentality. They go there thinking that Zongos don't listen, they are violent, they are this, they are that. So when they get there, instead of making an attempt to de-escalate, they also use the booga booga, and in the end, people get hurt or perhaps killed.
Because I'm sure you listen to my colleagues here, Ransford and Nancy. They want those police officers to have no business to do with the Ghana Police Service again. What do you say?
Okay, so when I hear people talk about interdiction, I cringe because they think interdiction is punishment. Interdiction is no punishment. Interdiction just means stand aside so we investigate, so you don't interfere. That's all. So the crux of the matter should rather be the investigation. And, the things they said on the tape can destabilize the country. It is hate speech. It is criminal. And I am 100% in favor of what Ransford and Nancy said. I agree with them hook, line, and sinker. These people shouldn't come close to law enforcement because they are supposed to be just. They are supposed to be professional. They are supposed to know. Okay? But you would realize that it is deep-seated in the hate, the animosity, the prejudice. It's just unbelievable. So such people shouldn't have anything to do with the police. Trust me. Because it is such people who drag the whole institution into disrepute. How can you say they are dirty, and if it were an Akan school, would they do this? And what do you know? Wherever Muslims are, there's my goodness. I mean, if not the peace we have enjoyed over the period, you think that if it were elsewhere, Muslims wouldn't have come into the streets. If you go to other places, even recently, a BJP, that's an Indian, the ruling party in India, a representative said some things about the Prophet and the protest, my goodness, in India, all across India. Then the Arab countries stopped doing business with India. Their Indian imports were taken off the shelves and all that. But this is even more serious than what happened there. But it's because of the cordiality, the harmonious relationship between the Christian and the Muslim community. I'm Muslim, but the closest people to me and the people I trust most and vibe with are Christians. My father was a big Malam, Adib Saani. Everybody knows him in Tamale. But he sent me to mission schools. I attended Kaladan SDA Primary, Rani Presby JHS. So that should tell you, when Easter, terrorists were bombing mosques in Sri Lanka, the chief imam was celebrating Easter with Christians in a mosque. Okay, when the so-called national mosque, I don't call it a national mosque because it has nothing national. Like the state didn't contribute 1 peso to it. Okay, so the central mosque, that's how I prefer to call it. When it was being commissioned, Christian leaders were invited. Okay, when we were lied to and told this is a personal project for the cathedral, somebody just went to bed and promised God he would build him a home, a bed with a bedroom and a bed to sleep. The chief imam contributed, only that he was misled. Unfortunately, he was lied to, like the rest of Ghanaians. Okay, the chief imam contributed. Where can you find this? There's a story of a former Nigerian leader in Ghana. He went for a program, opening prayer, Christian, closing prayer, Muslim. He was shaking his head. After the program, someone approached him. Why were you shaking your head? He said, this is unthinkable in Nigeria. Such harmonious relationship between Christians and Muslims is worth emulating. I wish we could see this in Nigeria. So what has happened with respect to these irresponsible, unprofessional, so-called police officers is heartbreaking. And I think that they should be discharged from the service. They should have nothing to do with the police service.
Finally, let me ask you how you think, because this should influence the investigations into the matter. And secondly, you were also talking about the fact that they should give the IGP an indication as to perhaps police training and dealing with biases has been part of perhaps what the training the police go through.
Okay, so I don't think there's so much of that infused into their training regime. Already, the training regime leaves much to be desired. There are so many loopholes. Crime is changing by the day. Yesterday's insecurity is not as today because of new issues, new actors, new weapons, new strategies. It keeps changing. So if you apply a training sort of model 10 years ago, you cannot apply it today, okay, because it keeps changing. So I think it is time we infused significantly, bias, how to deal with biases in the training regime. Like I indicated, there are some people who are biased but don't know they are biased. Okay, and that is called implicit biases. And I remember one of I've followed keenly the trainings that officers in the U.S. were given. And one of the things they were asked to do is they would go to a shooting range. Then there are dummies of suspects and civilians appearing suddenly, then you have to shoot. And they got to understand that the officers were quick to shoot black innocent people than white suspects with respect to the dummies that appeared. Okay, so that said a lot about their biases, and I think they crafted the training regime to take care of that. So I think that in as much as this is despicable, this is unfortunate, we need to use this as an advantage to really, as a matter of urgency, infuse the bias training, not just at the beginning or the recruitment stage, but at the retraining stage. Even current serving officers should be made to go through that training, so we are able to at least re-establish some level of trust and confidence in the police by the citizenry, which is, I must say, at an all-time low.
Adib, always a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Adib Saani is with the Jatike Center for Human Security and Peace Building. Before I go to Afewa,